Hello and welcome to this public information webinar. My name is Sinead O'Donnell and I'll be your host for this evening. And over the next hour, you'll be hearing from the managers, the design engineers and other stakeholders who are involved in the proposed Grand Canal Stormwater Outfall Extension project. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with an overview of this Dublin City Council project, which is co-funded by Irish Water. We want you to hear about it, to ask questions and to gather more details. This webinar will be interactive. Over the next hour, we'll be hearing two short presentations at first, and then we'll be hosting a live Q&A discussion with our panel of experts. And joining us on the panel today is Niall Armstrong, Senior Executive Engineer at Dublin City Council, Kieran O'Dwyer, Associate Director with JB Barry Engineers, Olive Marshall, Wastewater Regional Lead for the East and Midlands with Irish Water, and Pádraig Doyle, Senior Engineer with Dublin City Council. Also joining us this evening is Maureen O'Corran from Waterways Ireland. And I should emphasise that Waterways Ireland is not seeking planning permission, but as an organisation with much experience and expertise in this area, Maureen has kindly agreed to be with us here this evening to help answer any of your questions. Now, throughout the presentations, please feel free to get involved. On the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that there's a Q&A facility where during the webinar at any time, you can ask questions about the project. Once the two presentations are complete, we'll have a live Q&A discussion where our panel of experts will endeavour to answer as many of your questions as possible throughout this webinar. If there are any questions here tonight that we just don't get time to get to, don't worry. Please know that you can email the project team at any stage using the following email address that's appearing now on screen. It's gcbswoe@dublincity.ie. and they will respond to your query directly. Or of course, you can also check out the frequently asked questions page on the Dublin City Council website. We'll now begin with our first presentation. May I introduce Niall Armstrong, who's Senior Executive Engineer with Dublin City Council. Niall has over 30 years experience in the civil engineering industry. He worked as a project manager for a civil engineering contractor for over 20 years before joining Dublin City Council in 2014.
Thank you, Sinead. And as Sinead said, my name is Niall Armstrong. I'm a Senior Executive Engineer with Dublin City Council. I'm also the Project Manager for the Grand Canal Stormwater Outfall Extension Project. So thanks for your valuable time. It is much appreciated. So just to give you a little bit of background to the Grand Canal Tunnel. Some of you will probably know that it was constructed in the 1970s. It runs parallel and alongside the canal itself, and its purpose was to enable development of the city and the suburbs to the west. On the sketch there, it shows Harold's Cross and Dolphin's Barn, but it goes much further west and north than shown there. It also accommodates overflow from both the Poddle and the Swan rivers. It's 3.6 meters in diameter. That's approximately 12 foot in old money. And it's divided into two cells, one for storm water, surface water, runoff water, and the other one takes the foul sewerage. At Grand Canal Street Upper, the foul and the stormwater pipes separate into two dedicated pipelines. The stormwater discharges into the Grand Canal Basin and from there on to the River Liffey. The foul water goes to the Ringsend treatment plant. So we just have an aerial view of the basin here for your attention. I'll just draw your attention in particular to the red arrow at the bottom of the aerial view. That's the actual point where the stormwater pipe is currently discharging or falling into the water of the inner basin of the Grand Canal. So that's the end of that pipe at present. Our proposed project involves extending this existing outfall so that it goes directly to the River Liffey. As Sinead mentioned earlier, it's a joint project funded by Irish Water and DCC. So why do we need the project? Why are we proposing these works? Essentially, it's to improve water quality in the basin. So the basin, the Grand Canal Basin, it's periodically impacted by microbiological pollution, particularly after heavy rainfall events. So it's not all the time, but it is noticeable after these events. This pollution manifests itself in the form of E. coli and enterococci, and these are indicators, they're known indicators for the presence of fecal matter. So in 2017, a working group was established between Irish Water, Dublin City Council, and Waterways Ireland to determine what is the cause of this intermittent pollution. It was established that the primary source of the pollution is the discharge from the surface water section of the Grand Canal Tunnel. So therefore, by removing the pipeline from the basin, we're going to greatly reduce the pollution within it. I'll just give you a brief overview of the proposed pipeline. Kieran O'Dwyer from JB Barry will be going through this in a little bit more detail shortly after I'm finished speaking here. I'll draw your attention to the red section here on the top of the slide. That's the section of pipeline that's already in existence, and it runs from Hanover Quay through the centre of Asgard Road on towards Sir John Rogerson's Quay. So it was already built in 2002, and it's a box culvert, essentially just a concrete box, 2.7 by 4 meters in dimension. So the proposed works are shown on this particular slide in green. So essentially what they're doing is connecting the existing outfall, it's shown in yellow, to the previously constructed culvert shown in red. And also there would be, subject to planning, there would be an outfall structure on Sir John Rogerson's Quay at the top of the slide. So this is just another overview of the existing basin. You'll see on the right-hand side, you will notice there's lock gates there. So it's interesting to know that the current outfall pipe discharges to the basin, which is essentially sort of a small enclosed body of water. And from there, it discharges to the River Liffey at the lock gates. So the proposed extension would discharge directly to the River Liffey, which is a large body of water, which has got tidal flows in and out, and it'll bypass the basin. In that way, it'll improve the water quality within the basin and will enhance its amenity value. So just a couple of photographs here, just to give you a little bit better, give you your bearings on where the proposed works are. On the left-hand side, we have a picture of Hanover Quay, right at its junction of the Grand Canal Quay. You can see the architectural platform there with the red straws just to the right of the photograph. So at that point where the trees begin there, our proposal is that the pipes will come off the ground, off the water rather, and land on ground. And we will construct, subject to planning, we will construct a box culvert, which would be placed underground along the line of those trees buried. We will then need to tie into the existing culvert, which is on Asgard Road. And so we will come across the road and tie in with that existing structure. On the right-hand side, we have a photograph of Asgard Road and Sir John Rogerson's Quay at the junction of the two of them. Approximately where that gentleman is on the right-hand side is where we would hope to be picking up the box culvert that was constructed in 2002, joining into it and extending an outfall structure across to the River Liffey, which you'll see on the left there. Just to give you a little bit of background on it, phase one, as I mentioned, was complete in 2002. At that time, or before that time, permission was given for the full project, but it didn't proceed to construction. And then this permission expired when the Dublin Docklands Development Authority dissolved. So that's why we need to apply for planning permission again for this phase two. So our plans are to apply to submit this planning permission application rather early in next year in 2022. We would expect that a planning decision would arrive then in the second half of 2022. So again, thank you for your attention. And as Sinead said, I will be around for the Q&A session. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Niall. And lots of great questions coming in there throughout the presentation. Keep them coming in and we'll get to them shortly in the Q&A session. A reminder again, if you want to ask a question at any time, please do so using the Q&A facility at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Now we come to our second and final speaker for this evening, Kieran O'Dwyer, Associate Director with JB Barry Engineers. And Kieran is a civil engineer with over 30 years experience in environmental consultancy. Kieran specialises in the field of environmental impact assessment and environmental management, water and groundwater.
Thank you, Sinead. I'm the project manager from JB Barry on the project, and what I'm responsible for is to get this through the planning stage. We're also responsible for the design of the project. I am this evening trying to help everyone to have an understanding of what it is that we're going to do and what it will look like and where the work will take place. So the Grand Canal Dock project, the primary objective is basically to extend the outfall, which is, as Niall showed, at the southern end of the Grand Canal Dock, and basically bypass the whole Grand Canal Dock, Grand Canal Basin to a new outfall at the River Liffey, and complete a project that was started back in 2001. The primary benefits would be improving the water quality within the Grand Canal Dock, Grand Canal Basin, and enhancing the amenity value of the area, of the Grand Canal Dock area. Now, this area since 2001 has experienced considerable rejuvenation, and the actual basin itself has become a center feature of the same. So what are we going to do? We're starting down here. That's the existing outfall where the stormwater from the various parts of Dublin comes down and enters into the basin. And at times this actually results in marginal intermittent pollution events. We will be taking 5 pipes, 1.5 meter diameter, through the basin, underwater, 1.9 meters to the top of them, under what we call McMahon Bridge, which is the Ringsend Road, taking a slight turn over here, and then on to the 4 meters from the quay wall along there, but within the basin itself, down to a chamber there, which is like an adapter to change the pipes to the land section along Hanover Quay, and then down to join up with our previous thing. This kind of shows us as it happens, right? This is the way the water will go, all encased, okay, comes down here, joins the old pipe, goes through the old pipe, the old culvert, the phase 1 culvert, and ultimately discharges to the River Liffey. So the phase 1 element, right? This was completed, as we said, back in 2002. It's basically a concrete culvert, underground culvert, an underground tunnel. At the moment, it serves no purpose whatsoever. And basically, we are hoping now to join up with it and make the use of what it was intended for. It was constructed back then because the Dublin Docklands Authority were carrying out remediation works for the development of the area at the time, and it suited everybody to put in this culvert in while they were doing it, less excavation, and there was a considerable cost saving. Phase 2, what we're doing now, is joining up with that. On this diagram as well, as the construction takes place, there are going to be two compounds, construction compounds. The main one will be located at the end of Hanover Quay. And then there will be another small one, a small compound location opposite the Waterways Ireland Visitor Centre. And that will be there to accommodate the work in the inner basin. Now, when we designed the route of this, there were a serious number of considerations, which were considerations which were put together in order to facilitate the future and present use of the Grand Canal Basin itself. Such things were minimum clearance, draft clearance for boats within the dock, clearance under the bridge at McMahon Bridge, wall stability. Waterways Ireland were consulted extensively on this. There were archaeological, traffic management, contaminated material, and other things were taken into account. And we came up with our existing design and proposal. First of all, we will be tying into the existing outfall, and this will involve taking the existing outfall and building basically an adapter to the end of it, which will have 5 pipes going along in parallel under the bridge. Along that route, there's down here we can see the pipes will be laid on concrete cradles that will be dropped into the basin. Then the pipes will be dropped in and encased in concrete. That's the other point we would make would be the moorings that are there. They will need to be removed in order to accommodate the construction element. So we come then down to the Hanover Quay side. As I say, once we have passed through the basin, the Hanover Quay element is now back on to what we are calling the land element. All the rest in the basin will be taking place within the basin itself, and that should, to a certain extent, minimize disruption in terms of traffic, etc. However, there will be a disruption for this element. That's Hanover Quay as it looks now. We have to excavate a trench, deep trench there to put in this concrete culvert. And then we have to fill that back in and basically reinstate it to look like that. As we say there that's the transition chamber or the adapter taking the pipes from the basin through this and then into this concrete culvert that comes down Hanover Quay, turns along, and then we will break into the existing phase 1 culvert, and that would constitute the Hanover Quay element. Just in terms of Asgard Road, this Asgard Road that we're looking at here, that has the phase 1 culvert underneath it, and that just shows the fact that once this is in place, you will not be able to perceive that it's there. Then we come to the far end. Now, this is the far end of the phase 1 thing. That's the River Liffey there. That's Sir John Rogerson's quay. So we join up with this and cross the Sir John Rogerson's quay to a specifically designed outfall that will discharge to the River Liffey. This is looking sideways on the outfall to the Liffey. Just put this in for to kind of illustrate. It's probably one of the few elements of the project that you'll be able to see any evidence of it being there after. And to do so, you basically have to be on a boat in the river at medium or low tide to see. It will be completely submerged, the outfall, at high tide. You will see the top of it at low tide, at medium tide, low tide. So, as I say, it will be unobtrusive in its operational phase. So that, I hope, gives you a picture of what way it will be constructed, what way we plan the route it will take. And as I say, thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, I would be quite pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. And now it is time for our live Q&A session. Taking your questions this evening are Niall Armstrong, Senior Executive Engineer at Dublin City Council, Kieran O'Dwyer, who you just heard from there, Associate Director with JB Barry Engineers, Olive Marshall, who is the Wastewater Regional Lead for the East and Midlands with Irish Water, Pádraig Doyle, Senior Engineer with Dublin City Council. And joining us also this evening is Maureen O'Caron from Waterways Ireland. Now, as I said, lots of questions coming in, and indeed many of you sent in questions in advance of this webinar, so we're going to get to them straight away now. The first question I think might be best suited for Olive. Question here says, will this cause any visual impact in the area, and what will the area look like after this proposed project has been completed?
Thanks, Sinead. Yeah, the scheme actually will lead to very little change in terms of visual impact once it's complete. There will be access covers visible and paved areas. And as Kieran described in his presentation, part of the outfall structure will be visible from the Liffey in times of low tide, but the walls, the surrounding walls, will be completely restored. There'll also be a floating pipeline in the outer basin over the top of the pipe, which will also be visible from the edges in the Grand Canal. And then kind of finally, any paved area or any amenity areas will be restored to their pre-contract condition.
Great stuff. Thank you, Olive. A lot of questions coming in as well about water quality. One question here, Pádraig, maybe perhaps you might answer this. Is the water in the Grand Canal Basin currently a health hazard?
No, I wouldn't say that, Sinead. I have to say the water quality in the Grand Canal Basin is generally quite good. The basin is currently used extensively for water sports. There's absolutely no danger in that. What can happen after heavy rainfall is combined sewers can overflow into the Grand Canal pipe and then end up in the Grand Canal Basin, which means that those kind of activities may have to be disrupted in the short term. The point of this project, I suppose, is to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, and the Grand Canal Basin can then be used throughout the year without interruption.
That's great. Thank you, Pádraig. Some questions in here as well about traffic disruption and how long this is going to take. If planning permission is given, what is the process then, and how long will it take for this project to be completed? Niall, maybe perhaps if you could answer that one.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. Well, if planning permission is granted, our next step would be to progress the funding. We have begun on funding applications, but we would need to progress them in order to fund the construction works themselves. Parallel with that process, we'd have to gather together the construction contract documents, so these would need to be finalized. It's quite possible that the permission, if granted, would have some conditions with it, and those would need to be embedded into any contract that we entered into with a building contractor or a civil engineering contractor. And of course, we'd also have to embed any stakeholder commitments that we had made into that. So those documents would be pulled together and the tender process would begin. So the tender process is essentially trying to get a contractor, the best contractor to bid for it and to carry out the works. Generally with tender processes, there are, well, not generally, well, generally with larger tender processes, there are a lot of legal stipulations and time periods and processes that of necessity you have to go through under European Union directives and Irish law. So we would be bound by all them. So long story short, all these processes could take between 12 months and 18 months. So if we were lucky enough to get permission to commence our planning permission in the middle of 2022, the estimated commencement would be Q3 2023. That's the third quarter of 2023. We estimate that the works themselves would take in the order of 2 years to carry out. Could you ask me about disruption as well? Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's some questions in here about, you know, will there be much traffic disruption? One question here: will there be any traffic disruption on Sir John Rogerson's quay? Yeah, I suppose. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's grand. Yeah. So there would be a certain amount of disruption indeed. As Kieran noted, there are two, or as we both noted, there are two areas where the works are land-based, and these are on Hanover Quay and Sir John Rogerson's quay. So there would be disruption at these points. The Hanover Quay work is largely behind, it's on the Campshires, but one section of it needs to tie into Asgard Road. If you remember, there was what I call the red section there that's already built. So we need to bring a structure across the Hanover Quay at its junction with Asgard Road. So to do that, there would be some disruption to traffic in particular, and the traffic would have to be diverted around that junction for a short period of time. But all of this will be part of the construction documents. There's what we call in the industry a CEMP, which is a construction environmental management plan that the contractor will be required to produce on receipt of the contract documents. And that will outline his traffic management plans, which would be agreed with the authorities. It would do so for Hanover Quay and also for Sir John Rogerson's Quay, where there's the large outfall structure. That CEMP would also involve other things. It would address his or her plans with regard to the mitigation of noise, dirt, and vibration, etc. So also then there are, as you may recall, there are 2 areas where we propose having compounds. So there will be, again, there'll be disruption there in terms of, well, not so much disruption, but there will be traffic going in there. There'll be goods vehicles will need to access these points. So they will become through agreed optimized routes. And so they'll be basically on Hanover Quay at the end near the lock gates. And the other one is on the Grand Canal Quay near Waterways Ireland's visitor centre. We have an early estimate of the number of movements of heavy good vehicles, which would be approximately 7 per day in and 7 per day out, and based over the period. So there will be some impact on traffic in that area.
Will traffic be able to flow?
Oh yeah, traffic at all times. It's our intention, and traffic will be able to flow, but at certain times there will be alternative arrangements for traffic. So access to all the business premises will be maintained at all times.
Great stuff. We've had a number of questions and queries in from people who are currently live in houseboats within Grand Canal Dock. Maureen, maybe perhaps you might be best placed to answer some of these. Can the panel please describe the plans for these houseboats for people living here during the project phase, and if they will be affected by this proposed project in any way?
Hi, I hope you can hear me there. Yes. Just to say, I'm not in the studio. I'm at home in my home. Can you hear me? Yes, Sinead? Yes. So the people living in the inner dock, a lot of them know me. Yes, they will be affected. That I suppose that is a given. Waterways Ireland are working very hard at the moment and are committed to finding a temporary solution in the outer basin. That's our preferred location, and we're working through the planning process to put in temporary moorings for the residential berths that are there, that, you know, for the people who are there at the moment. We anticipate that the services will go with them, and we anticipate that when for the full duration of the work, the whole time, probably the 2 years that the work is happening, it'll be that there'll be temporary alternative accommodation provided, hopefully in the outer dock, and that's our preferred location. That's what we're looking for at the moment. I'm happy. I know a number of people living in the inner dock I've spoken with already, and more than happy to discuss that. I suppose that is a separate process. It isn't part of this planning application. Waterways Ireland are working on that, and our engineers are working on that as well. So sorry, the other disruption that I think somebody asked a question in terms of other disruption that there will be, that during the phase of construction, there will not be a lot of movement through Grand Canal Dock of boats during that period.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, there is some other questions here, but I'll get back to you shortly.
Okay, no problem.
Those. Olive, can you, a question in here, what exactly are the benefits of this proposed project?
The main benefit of the scheme is the improvement of water quality within the basin itself. During periods of heavy rainfall, the water quality deteriorates, and it can lead to cancellation of recreational and amenity events within the basin, such as kayaking and windsurfing. So once this project will be complete, these cancellations and intermittent cancellations will stop. And then the other benefit is that this is the final phase of a scheme that has already started with a culvert laid on Asgard Road.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Olive. Another water quality question here. I might, Kieran, you might be best placed to answer this. Will this proposed project change the water quality in the Liffey?
Thank you. Well, this project is all about water quality, and it is basically, it had always been intended back in '76 when the Grand Canal Tunnel was built. It had been proposed to discharge to the River Liffey. Why? The River Liffey is a much better option for a series of reasons. The flow in the River Liffey is considerably more than the through flow from the canal. We have tidal in and out, and we have sufficient dilution and the tidal flush that we would be satisfied that there will be no discernible impact on the water quality within downstream, within 50, 100 meters downstream of where the outfall, in other words, Tom Clark Bridge, beyond the Tom Clark Bridge. Now, we will be confirming this or demonstrating this. We have retained international renowned modeling hydraulic experts who are going to model this and show what the actual effect will be. In other words, to predict the impacts on the water quality. We will show that the environmental water quality standards that are being used under the Water Framework Directive, that where they are there where we are within those at present, we will continue to be within them. There are certain quality parameters within the Liffey that may be outside. The River Liffey isn't pristine, it's not Ballygowan, and therefore what we will be able to show is that we are talking about changing the water quality by 1 or less than 1%. And as a consequence, once we go down and there's further dispersion, dilution, we won't be able to see any effect on the Liffey beyond the mixing zone. Similarly, there's questions about the beaches out in Dublin Bay. Well, if we are having no discernible effect 100 meters downstream, we're not going to be contributing to anything that is affecting beaches or out in the bay itself. I hope that's of some assistance.
Thank you, Kieran. Question here, I think for Maureen. Are there plans for what the dock will be used for once amenity value has been enhanced?
So I suppose we're all bound by the SDZ, and I think that the vision for DCC and for ourselves is that the outer dock would have a lot more water activity, there'd be a lot more opportunity for events and on water activities, which would include kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, more boating activity is what's anticipated once we can do that with certainty without having to check the water quality so frequently as we do at the moment. It has to be tested very regularly to ensure that it's safe for people to use it. So events have to be cancelled. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, very good. Speaking of water quality, another question here, perhaps for either Pádraig or Kieran. Is the water quality in the basin currently tested to see if it complies with bathing water requirements? Are there signs up to warn the public of water quality issues and not to use the area for recreational purposes? Pádraig, do you want to answer that one?
Okay, I'll take that, Sinead. Grand Canal Dock is not designated bathing water. It's not tested to ensure compliance with bathing water regulations. However, it is tested on a regular basis for water quality. The vast majority of the time, water quality there is perfectly safe for water sports. On occasion, when it's been tested and established that it's not safe, or we know there may be a problem, then the groups that tend to use the basin are informed.
Okay, great stuff. Question here about parking. Is this proposed project going to impact parking in the area? Not sure if there is a lot of on-street parking in the area, but Niall, maybe perhaps you might answer that one.
Well, as you said, most of the works, as I think Kieran was at pains to point out earlier, is most of it is based in the water, and those areas where we're impacting on the land are Hanover Quay and Sir John Rogerson's Quay, and there are no parking at present on either of those locations at the locations where we propose to carry out the work. We also, as you may recall, we have two areas where we're hoping to construct or to set up compounds, like fenced off construction compounds. One of them is on Grand Canal Quay near Waterways Ireland's Visitor Centre, and there is no public parking adjacent to where are affected by our proposed compound. On Hanover Quay, down at the end of Hanover Quay, down towards the lock gates, there is some parking there, which from Benson Street down to the end of the quay at the lock gates may be affected by our proposed compound. So there would be a little bit of an effect there, I anticipate, but no major effect.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for that, Niall. Another question in here, I think for Kieran. If the height of the pipe underwater is 1.9 meters, which I think you stated in your presentation, how much water will clear the pipe, and what will happen to the navigability of the inner basin when there are low water levels? So how will you be able to navigate around the inner basin if there are low water levels?
Thank you. Well, the nature of the basin, the level in there is controlled by lock gates, and the water level will always be, there will always be a clearance of 1.9 meters, unless there are certain circumstances where they have to open the lock gates to do it. But for the most part, the way the canal basin works, there's a controlled water level, 3.4 meters OD, and we will be maintaining the 1.9 meters based on that. So it's not affected by the tide or whatever, as the Liffey is on the other side. So for the most part, is the way the basin works is it has the same water level day in, day out. So I hope that's clear.
Brilliant stuff. That's great. Thanks very much, Kieran. Another question here. Will there be a budget for the redesign of the jetties in the basin? I'm not sure which of the panel would want to answer that. Maybe Maureen? I don't know if you heard that. Will there be a budget for the redesign of the jetties in the basin?
So I can confirm that that you know, in parallel to this process, Waterways Ireland are in discussion with Irish Water and Dublin City Council about this temporary relocation of the jetties in the outer dock. I do think that there may be an opportunity to look at design when the jetties are going back in, but that, I suppose, is beyond the scope of this project. Just to say that. And I suppose the other, just to go back to the navigability of the inner dock, just to say yes, and that has been Waterways Ireland's position all along, that once the pipe goes in, that suitable barges can get in and under, get under McMahon Bridge. And I suppose that's been one of the main roles that the organisation has had in the past. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Brilliant stuff. That's great. Another question here. Will only residential houseboat permit holders be given a berth? I think, again, Maureen, sorry.
Yeah.
Back to you, Maureen.
So there are, Waterways Ireland has planning permission for 20 for 20 houseboats. We anticipate that for the temporary relocation that there will be more than 20 moorings provided. I think that's the best thing to say, I suppose, here. And I think that maybe this is, you know, I suppose there's a separate process that we need to go through to look at that.
Brilliant stuff. Okay. Sorry. Another question here. Will the marina in the inner basin be put back in place at the end of the works?
So I'll take that. Yes.
Okay.
There's every intention. There's no intention of getting rid of the marina. That isn't the intention at all. The intention is to restore the jetties to the inner basin. There are plans for some development, but they're at the very early stages now. But there is no intention to get rid of the moorings in the inner basin.
Perfect.
And I can guarantee that.
Great stuff. Question here. Is this scheme due to be completed before the new Dodder Public Transport Bridge opens on Sir John Rogerson's Quay? Is it proposed to relocate the Dublin bike station at Asgard Road, Hanover Quay, if it needs to be removed during construction? Niall, maybe perhaps you'd be best placed to answer that one.
Yes, well, with regard to the Dodder Bridge, we're in close contact with the project team for that scheme, and we intend to streamline our works together and coordinate them so they don't disrupt each other. Our intention, we may have to prioritise our works on Sir John Rogerson's Quay to, so to speak, get out of the way of the work on the Dodder Bridge. At present, I think we're a little bit ahead of them from memory in terms of our timeline. So that we will be keeping a good eye on that to make sure that they streamline correctly. With regard to the second half of that question about Dublin bikes, the two Dublin bikes are there are stations on Hanover Quay, and those would be temporarily removed for the duration of the contract works, which is approximately 2 years, and restored afterwards. The other one, there's another one there at, I think it's at the corner of Grand Canal Quay and McMahon Bridge, or near there, and that would not be affected by the works. So that's really that.
Great stuff, Niall. Another question. Will the two areas of the pipe across Grand Canal Dock be completed separately so that the residents on the boats in the Grand Canal Dock will only have to move to the other side of the bridge and then back again when the work on the main dock commences? I don't know, is Kieran maybe, or Maureen for this one?
I'll answer, I suppose, just because the Irish Water and JB Barry aren't really involved in any relocation of moorings. That's more ourselves.
Okay.
And we have looked at that, and it looks like it's going to have to be for the full duration. I don't know if I fully got the question, but
yeah, let me give it to
the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so will the two areas of the pipe across Grand Canal Dock be completed separately so that the residents on the boats in the Grand Canal Dock will only have to move to the other side of the bridge and then back again when the work on the main dock commences?
So yes, we looked at this, and I suppose that's what we had thought simply, but it looks like it will have to be for the full duration of the project, just in terms of access for pump outs, just in case there's any delays, anything like that. And the work, I think, on the inner basin is the last bit of work to be done, as far as I recall. So it will be for the full duration of the project, is what we anticipate.
Okay. Niall, do you have anything to add?
Yes, we likewise anticipate that it will be for the full duration. From a health and safety point of view, we wouldn't like to commit to having any part of it given back to the public or to the residents in advance of the completion of the works. We think it would be safest to give the contractor the full area and make the full area available to him for the full duration. So that would be our position at present.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Another question here. Once the works start, how long should it take to complete, all going well?
I'll take that as well, if that's okay. I think I mentioned that it would be 2 years. We may improve on that, but that would be famous last words. So I would say we're looking at a contract duration, construction duration of 24 months.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Another question here, will the basin be any bigger or smaller after this is complete? Kieran, maybe perhaps you can answer that.
Very simple answer. The basin will be exactly the same as it is now, and you won't even know that there's a pipe through it. So it's not going to change the characteristics of the basin, which was a particular consideration of what we were doing. So the basin will be the same.
Okay. Another question here. Waterways Ireland have been engaging and committed to keeping the current permit holders abreast of the future plans, and we understand of the separate planning process. What would give us reassurance if all involved in new pipe plans were more cognizant of the disruption to houseboat owner occupants, and would ask if Kieran could factor in this awareness into his plans, given this significant this is significant more disruption than traffic. Not sure exactly that question. I think it's for you, Kieran, but.
Okay, to be honest, I'm not quite sure what the question is. Just the last sentence there.
Yeah, what would give us reassurance? So what would give us reassurance if all involved in new pipe plans were more cognizant of the disruption to houseboat owner occupants? I think it's fair to say that they are cognizant of the houseboat owner.
Well,
yeah,
we are, but again, is what we're doing is we're trying to design the solution to the moving of the outfall, the engineering element. We have been in contact and constant consultation with Waterways Ireland, and we have been cognizant, and we are very reliant and very grateful to Waterways Ireland, who have been spreading the message, and I think they've been very clear to the people and letting them know what's going on and what the disruption or inconvenience or the moving will involve.
Brilliant stuff. Another question here, will this project be subjected to ABP under the Strategic Infrastructure Act, or will it be submitted to the DCC? ABP and DCC, if anyone wants to.
On Bord Pleanála, we're making the planning application under Section 177 of the Planning Development Act, and the other one that refers to foreshore licenses. The number escapes me at the moment. So we are, but the application is being made to An Bord Pleanála, not to DCC. That's the planning route through An Bord Pleanála.
Okay, great stuff. There was actually a couple of questions in on that.
Yeah.
Another question here, will there be nighttime works going on with this proposed project if it does get the green light?
Well, again, nighttime works are not envisaged on this project. It's certainly regular nighttime works will not be happening on the scheme. It may be prudent to allow certain works and certain deliveries happen during the nighttime where there was a good reason for that. I'm thinking in particular maybe wide loads or special loads that would have a traffic difficulty in getting to the proposed work areas. So, but they will be the exception rather than the rule. They will be by application, they will be monitored, there will be traffic plans for them, and they will be notified, and that's if they happen at all. So the short answer would be no, certainly no regular nighttime works.
Okay, a question here for Maureen again. Could Maureen say more about what she means that there are some plans for some development in the basin? This obviously refers to, I think, what
well, I think I mentioned, I suppose, there's work starting in Trinity. This work is happening, and I suppose that Waterways Ireland are now looking at the fact that while this disruption is happening anyway for the houseboats, that maybe it is something that we could look at to develop an amenity in there in and around the inner dock, and maybe do some work on the visitor centre. So that's maybe what I was referring to. It's very early stages, that is very early stages. But I think that maybe given the volume of questions that have come in for from the house, from people in houseboats in there, that it might be wise for Waterways Ireland to have a separate session to follow up fairly soon, you know, only focusing solely on answering those questions and concerns.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions. Another question here: will the proposed works make the dock safe for swimming? I presume either Kieran, maybe, or Pádraig, if you want to, either or wants to take that one. Pádraig?
I'll take that, Sinead. The intention of this project is not to facilitate swimming in the Grand Canal dock. There will be a lot of the time after the project is finished, and even at the moment when it may be safe for swimming in terms of bacteriological levels. But bear in mind there are other factors at work. There will be no lifeguards in the dock. There may be difficulty getting in and out of it in different places. So it's not currently abating water. There is no intention to turn it into abating water. So the idea of this project is not to make it safe for swimming. In terms of bacteria levels, it would not be harmful for swimming, but that's not our proposal, to make it safe for swimming.
Okay. Another question here, I think for Kieran might be best placed to answer this one. Will you have to drain the basin to do the work?
Oh, an easy one. No. We would be the construction of the pipes. As I said, we would use barges, bring in, drop concrete cradles, then bring pipe strings out, then encase them within concrete. Now, there are elements, so that's all done from the boat by sinking things. However, there is the transition chambers, in other words, the part where we are, as I was referring to them as adapters, where we're going from one transition chamber to another. We will need dry working conditions there, but that'll be accomplished with cofferdams, which is basically creating a box around our working area, small box that's waterproof and watertight, and we will then be able to carry out our dry working conditions. But the basin, no, there's no draining of the basin required.
Okay, brilliant stuff. And I think this may be our last question here. Just in terms of the concrete pipes, so I'm guessing this may be for you, Kieran, as well. Just in terms of the concrete pipes running through the basin, how will these be supported in the basin?
Well, number one, they aren't concrete pipes. They're supported on concrete cradles that will be put in along the level that we require. And on top of these, they'll probably be HDPE, hydro something polyethylene pipes that will be welded together in strings and will be then dropped, either 6 or 2. There's 2 pipes in the outer basin, and then they will be put in the concrete over.
Okay, great stuff. I think we're going to leave it there this evening. That brings us to the end of the webinar. My thanks to all of the speakers here this evening and to you for your participation. A reminder again, if there is any other questions that you may have or any concerns, you can get in touch with the project team at any time. You can use the email address, which you will see now on screen. It is gcbswoe@dublincity.ie. Or of course, you can check out the frequently asked questions page on the Dublin City Council website. My thanks to everyone for participating here this evening. Take care and have a great evening.